gentlemen and lady, welcome to this IIRF webinar on operational dynamics in Jammu and Kashmir in the view of current developments along the international border and line of control areas and south of Pir Panjal ranges. Welcome all of you. And now I'll hand over to our President, Brigadier Sandeep, to take forward the proceedings. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Rishi. As you all know, the Indian subcontinent is going through a difficult tenure, and there are a lot of things happening all around us and inside India also, which is a point of concern for us strategically, economically, and sustenance-wise also. So welcome all who are joined, and we are thankful for sparing your time for attending this webinar on an overview of operational dynamics in Jammu and Kashmir in view of the current developments. Those who are not attending, I would say you can see it on our YouTube channel, and I would request all to please subscribe to the channel and refer it to your friends so that we will be having more of these events on strategic issues, economics, technology affecting national strategy, national security, and various other things. Without much ado, I would like to go into the introduction. In the last 1 month alone, several attacks have struck Jammu's Riyasi, Kathua, Doda, and Rajouri districts, prompting a region-wide high alert. While there are only 3 attacks against security forces in the Jammu region in 2022 and 23, 6 attacks have been recorded so far this year. Similar was the situation in the south of Pir Panjal from 2000 onwards, that is, after the completion of Kargil operations of Vijay. Pakistan-supported terrorists of Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Al-Badr had established hideouts in area Hill Kaka with support of some overground workers in the foothill areas, were inflicting heavy casualties on security forces operating in Rajouri, Surankot, and Riyasi sector. To the extent, in one of the operations, they killed more than 20 people of an RR Paltan. The Indian Army executed Operation Sarp Vinash in April-May 2003 to neutralize these terrorist groups. The operation was timed to capitalize on the post-winter period when the area was less accessible due to snow. Slide 3. The successful operation resulted in the neutralization of 65 terrorists, the capture of 3, and the recovery of a substantial number of weapons and warlike stores. After this operation, strengthening and redeployment of the Rashtriya Rifle formations ensured the region remained relatively peaceful until 2021. In 2023, the network of bunkers and shelters around the region known as Hill Kaka in Surankot numbered nearly over 100 and were intermingled with shelters used by local herdsmen. It took an all-out operation to beat the terrorists then. So the most important thing is that they had established it very well over a period of time. Are we heading for the same situation now? In the meantime, I would like to come back to this situation here. Terrorism in the valley was controlled over a period of time by focused military operations and Sadhavana schemes. Pakistan was not able to influence terrorist operation in Kashmir Valley. Therefore, considering its diminishing returns, it decided to review its operational strategy to focus on areas south of Pir Panjal ranges in 2021. They fully exploited the opportunity offered by the Indo-China confrontation, resulting in the withdrawal of forces deployed in the counterinsurgency grid in the Riyasi division for deployment in eastern Ladakh. Next slide. Since October 2021, several ambushes were executed by the terrorists in the area south of Pir Panjal, and despite conducting a number of combing and search operations, we didn't make any major headway. Terrorists had been striking at will and roaming freely, and they are yet to be neutralized. In the last 8 months or so, we had lost about 20 soldiers, including officers and commandos, and have been have been killed. Over 35 soldiers have been killed in the action in these areas in the past 2 years. Pakistan-based terror organizations are exploiting the Jammu region's vast and complex terrain to send armed terrorists across the international border and line of control using tunnels. Drones have further complicated the situation, enabling terrorists to enter as civilians and collect weapons from hideouts with assistance from local guides. I would just like to recall there was a Sejuan terror attack on an army camp in 2018, February 2018. Probably this gave the JEM and LET and their handlers enough confidence to infiltrate through the region with the help of local guides rather than going directly to the Rajouri sector. During January-March 21, increased terrorist activity and cross-border infiltration were noticed. Important thing to remember is sticky bombs were seized from the international border in Samba district. Terrorists used scientific methods to make tunnels beneath the border fences. On 27 June 2021, low-flying drones were suspected to have been used to drop 2 IEDs on security establishments and Jammu Air Force Station. In May 2022, the Katra bus fire killed 4 in a terror attack. Though initially it was thought it is not a terror attack, but later on it was identified that they used sticky bombs with the new tactics which the terrorists had put into action. In December 22, 4 terrorists were killed in a firefight with security forces in Sidra near Jammu, averting a major terror attack. In January 23, an SUV-bound terrorist killed 4 villagers and injured 9 in Dangri village, 10 kilometers from Rajouri. A change in tactics to attack soft targets. And on this year, from 9 to 12, along with what the changes which is happening in India, election time and all those things, from June 9 to 12, terrorists carried out 4 major attacks in Jammu region. On 9 June 24, the Riyasi bus attack killed 9 and injured 41 by a relatively new terrorist organization known as the Resistance Front, which announced that they are affiliated to the Lashkar-e-Taiba. On 11 and 12 June, 3 incidents took place. A village in Kathua near the international border saw a gunfight resulting in the deaths of 2 militants and a central CRPF officer. At the same time, 2 separate attacks on checkposts in Gando and Chataragala in Doda district injured 7 security personnel. And on 8 July 24, ambush on army vehicle killing 5 soldiers in Badnota village in Kathua district. And the latest incident was killing of 4 soldiers, including a captain in the Desa Hills of Doda on July 15. Next slide. The count this year is already inching up to the number of casualties suffered in all of 23. It's only 6 months, but we have already reached the death toll of 23. Besides Poonch and Rajouri, there have been attacks in Kathua, Udhampur and Doda as well. The latest incident was killing of 4 soldiers, which I already mentioned. And just to mention, one of the longest surviving Hizbul Mujahideen commanders, Muhammad Amin Bhatt alias Jahangir Saruri, is a Kishtwar native, and there is a 50 lakh bounty on his head. Probably he is the man who is supporting and helping things and guiding things in what is happening in Doda sector. These attacks reflect the evolving operational tactics of terror outfits guided by the ISI and the Pakistan Army. Also, the geographical shift of these terror attacks suggests a strategic broadening of ISI/terrorist objectives, advanced tactics such as tunneling beneath border fences, employment of drones, and technologies such as Iridium satellite phones and thermal imagery demonstrate strategic shift towards a more covert and technological aided methods. It is estimated that about 90 to 100 terrorists, including 55 to 60 Pakistanis, including ex-SSG commandos, have infiltrated through the international border in Samba and Kathua districts, and possibly also along the Pathankot district in Punjab, and through the line of control in Kathua, Rajouri, and Poonch districts. J&K police sources say local support has grown again for the militants. So, like the last point here on the screen, at present it is estimated that close to 3,300 overground workers are active in J&K and supporting the terrorists coming from across. In 2024, more soldiers got killed compared to the number of terrorists neutralized. So this is a very worrying factor. This calls for a serious introspection at all levels. We need to identify means to exploit emerging technology to reduce on casualties and conduct proactive operations instead of being in a reactive mode, as happening now, not always. Also need to improve reach of civil administration to the remotest villages in the areas to settle the genuine concern of the population settled in these areas. And of course, with the help of security forces, which will help to reduce OGWs and sympathizers supporting the terrorists. Next slide. This slide I'm just showing you to show the areas which you are all aware. In yellow is the valley. In maroon is the the Jammu and Rajouri Poonch sector, and in white is the Doda area. I just want it is very visible that the Pir Panjal ranges is actually dividing the entire area into three. The Pir Panjal is dividing basically the valley and the Rajouri Poonch sector, and the Pir Panjal ranges has connectivity with Doda also. As a devil's advocate, I would like to point out that if the militants can make, in Gaza they have made tunnels. Why not here? They can make tunnels. That means there are routes which is coming through. They can go to valley, they can go to Rajouri Poonch sector, and if required, if they extend, they can come to Doda also. So this requires to be checked and analyzed and how it will work. So it's my observation, and this can be considered when our esteemed panelists speak. Panelist, Major General Ravi Murugan, Param Vishis Seva Medal, Adi Vishis Seva Medal. He is an alumni of National Defence Academy. He is a postgraduate from Defence Service Staff College and has done Higher Air Command course. His exposure as an instructor is very commendable. As a captain, he was a commando instructor in Commando Wing. As a major, he was instructor in Military Intelligence Training School. And as a colonel at School of Armored Warfare, he commanded an independent armored brigade and Rashtriya Rifle Counter-Insurgency Force in Doda-Kiswar sector as GOC. He had exposure as a military observer in the UN mission. He was also our defense attaché in United States of America. He has a technological bent of mind and is candid in his observation. We couldn't find anybody better to speak on operational dynamics in Doda sector in view of the current developments. Over to you, General Murugan, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm extremely obligated by your kind words of introduction. Firstly, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and those who are participating and who are listening to this webinar today. It's indeed a privilege for me to be speaking. This is the first time I'm attending a webinar of IIRF. And so it is indeed a privilege for me to be speaking to this audience on this current situation in Jammu and Kashmir with specific emphasis south of Pir Panjal ranges. This is a matter of topical interest due to being in the news consequent to an upsurge in violence parameters. And this upsurge is primarily, again, south of Pir Panjal ranges. I do not think that the violence parameters have changed drastically in the valley. So if at all a change has happened, it would have been for the better. And this, especially so, again, this areas which have been affected connect to the mainland, and it virtually raises the specter of the wolves at the door. So therefore, it is a targeted upsurge in violence to create the necessary psychological and perception impact. And therefore, I would like to convey my views on this in a manner which I think why these things are unfolding and as to where this is likely to lead to and what do we need to do in a very broad manner, because there are enough experts who are thinking about it. There are people on ground who are functioning on this. First and foremost, the three defining dates we are well aware of. 2019, the abrogation of Article 370 happened, as luck would have it. I took over as GOC Delta Force on 1st August 2019, and on 5th August 2019, the Article 370 was abrogated. So the entire period of my command went post abrogation. And 2022, the delimitation also happened, and the various boundary changes, which has political ramifications and electoral consequences, have happened. And in 2024, we are awaiting the conduct of the assembly elections. Because a change of political dispensation to rule by elected political party actually conveys the message that normalcy has truly returned. So this is again a defining year. So having said that, 2019 to 2021, during my period there and subsequently when I would monitor it, I have no other information than what is covered in open source media. The SF had an upper hand, especially in the valley. If my memory serves me right, we had virtually decimated the resident terrorist population to 2 figures, while the INT estimates may continue to say that the resident population is about over 3 figures. But to my mind, we had brought it down to 2 figures over, in fact, somewhere between 80 to 100. And as far as south of Pir Panjal goes, during that period, the last violent or terrorist encounter took place in 2009 in Doda, Kishtwar, Ramban districts. And in 2019, post-abrogation, that is when I was commanding Delta Force, the next incident happened post 10 years. And the first encounter happened actually in Batot itself, close to the headquarters, within 3 months of the abrogation. So actually speaking, when you look at it, an incremental increase in terrorist activity and contact with terrorists, whether resulting in elimination or missed contact, started from 2019 onwards. So when you look at the figures, but when you look at again, these are open source figures. I do not have access to any other figures. So as for the open source figures, infiltration in 2019, there were 171 infiltration attempts foiled and 130 terrorists killed. In 2020, 62 infiltration attempts foiled. That is, I'm talking about trans LC stroke trans IB. 62 infiltration attempts foiled and 36 terrorists killed. In 2021, 58 infiltration attempts foiled and 31 terrorists killed. And in 2022, 4 terrorist infiltration attempts foiled and 0 terrorists killed. So when you look at it, all parameters indicated that things were virtually, violence in Jammu and Kashmir was being reduced to the bare minimum, and could have been classified as incidents could have been classified in the domain of law and order also. But in 2023 and 24, you found an upsurge taking place. So those figures have not come out yet, but the figures for 2024 are very clear. Till now, in 6 months, there have been 11 terrorist-initiated incidents. 28 people, including 11 security forces, have been killed. In June, of course, as brought out by Brigadier Sandeep, there have been a series of attacks. So south of Pir Panjal was always a hub of terrorist activity, even in the early days of insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir. We are talking about the early 90s onwards. It would surprise a lot of people to know that CIF Delta, Counterinsurgency Force Delta, was the first insurgency RR headquarter to be raised. It predates CIF Victor by 20 days. So if you look at the oldest counterinsurgency force in Jammu and Kashmir, it was south of Pir Panjal in Doda district. And the reason why it was in Doda district is that, as well known to most people, this was used as a transit corridor. It was used as a safe haven. It was used as to lie and wait up and sending cadres across the Pir Panjal into the valley, carry out actions, and then come back into the safe sanctuaries. And the reason they were safe sanctuaries were that the terrain south of Pir Panjal, the dynamics of terrain south of Pir Panjal is completely different from that in the valley, whereas valleys, other than the line of control where the infiltration attempts are foiled by or anti-infiltration grid, in the hinterland, it is all plain. So the movements are easy. The ability to hide can only be within the population or in close whereabouts. Whereas south of Pir Panjal, if you look at only Doda Kishtwar districts, it's over 12,000 square kilometers. And every area is rugged, forested, thickly vegetated with steep gradients. So the ability to lie up, the ability to hide, the ability to escape, even if spotted, is extremely high. So that is the reason in the early years they used this as one of the as a transit hub and a safe haven. So while 2 decades, post, as I said, 2009, there were virtually 2 decades of restless peace which followed south of Pir Panjal. And the decimation of the terrorist strength in the valley resulted in areas. Now that the strength was brought down to manageable levels in the valley, the focus in the perpetrators and the operators who are controlling the entire mechanics was to bring back activities south of Pir Panjal for a number of reasons. So to my mind, why has there been an upsurge in violent activities? There has been an upsurge because the entire narrative of restoration of normalcy possibly requires to be defeated. And if that narrative has to be defeated, then the incidents of violence and terrorist initiated actions need to be widespread across Jammu and Kashmir, not only restricted to the Kashmir Valley. So that probably could be one of the main reasons for that. Second reason is that the need to tap into the latent fault lines. We are all aware of the demographics in the Srinagar Valley. And we know what the demographics south of Pir Panjal are. For those who are not aware of this, there is near parity in population numbers as far as both the religious communities are concerned. So south of Pir Panjal, it's about 55%. I mean, especially in and even that is the same even in Riyasi Udhampur, is about 55% Muslims and in about 45% Hindus. So there are latent fault lines there, and there have been, the history itself shows us the number of incidents of communally targeted violence to create splits and to force movement in these areas, similar to what had happened in the valley, was an ongoing effort in the peak of terrorist activity. Since then, a number of actions were taken which nipped this and which prevented this. And not the least of which is the courage shown by the smaller populations in these areas. They refused to vacate their villages. The VDCs were formed. The VDC, again, the village defense committees, were again an initiative which was again started from Doda district. So villagers were armed with their weapons. They were told to take a stake in their security. They were trained. Every year they would come and pass a training test. This used to be, and the reason I'm aware of it is that from 2000 to 2003, I was responsible for Jammu and Kashmir and MO3. So we used to monitor all parameters. And again, one thing which is not much known is Op Vigil started in Doda district. And Op Vigil is where we sought volunteers from the Indian Army who were serving volunteers to function in small teams, and they were inserted into villages. At that time, it was felt that there was no other way we could stop this because the incidents were multiplying. So volunteers were taken from areas in and around these districts who could speak the language, who could meld with the population. Officers were asked to volunteer to lead these teams. So at its peak, Op Vigil had about 1,500 personnel distributed over hundreds of villages. And they functioned with the VDCs. They gave information. They sought contact. And after about a year or 2 years, this was wound down for the simple reason it was difficult to get people after some time, because mostly all those who belonged were put through that cycle. So that is one of the reasons this area was stabilized. So to my mind, coming back to what I said, so if the intent is to expand the arc of terrorist activities, to break the narrative of normalcy, number one, to exploit latent fault lines, which always existed, and it continues to that
Gently, you've
because of
frozen.
the, sorry,
You've frozen, sir. Sorry.
I'm not audible.
You are now. Sorry. Thank you,
Okay,
sir. Sorry.
Yeah, the other reason why it suits the terrorist handlers to activate this region is terrain. Now, operationally, when you look at it, the survival of a terrorist in the valley is based on support from the local population. I'm talking about Srinagar Valley. However, south of Pir Panjal, the survival of a terrorist is based on his familiarity with terrain, because the terrain is his biggest supporter. And earlier, we used to have, wherever he had local support and guides. Now, as we go along, the information which you receive now is that there is a new playbook being unfolded. And that new playbook, from what the indications are, we will talk about as we go ahead. So terrain is one of the biggest supporters of survivability of a terrorist, and therefore it's axiomatic that you activate south of Pir Panjal. Third, as brought out with Brigadier Sandeep, there is a clear contiguity across the passes which exist. In fact, there are a number of passes, and you don't require to tunnel. To be frank, I mean, to answer one of the questions which raised by Brigadier Sandeep, you actually don't require to tunnel. You can pass across with impunity, because it's virtually impossible to stop movement across. The terrain is so rugged and vast. So that is the other reason operationally why you would want to activate it. Third is that impact has, the impact of incidents in this area has more impact on the mainland by virtue of the connectivities to the mainland. And chances of success, this has been brought out multiple times, chances of success in these encounters of a terrorist versus a security force operation is more weighed towards the terrorist, because he's static, he's hidden, he's able to monitor movements from far away, so he has adequate time to adjust, readjust. So the chances favor him, as opposed to operations carried out in a valley where he may be hidden in a house, it gets surrounded, and then finally he gets eliminated. Whereas here, the chances of escape are so much more. So when you look at it from an operational, from a political perspective, and as also, so whatever, some of the things which some things which have changed from even 4 years ago is, one, the weapons and equipment being taken by being carried by terrorists now operating in these areas, especially south of Pir Panjal, are sophisticated. They are primarily from the inventory left behind by the NATO when they left helter-skelter from Afghanistan, whether it be M4s, whether it be night vision devices, whether it be communication radio equipment which are encrypted. So, and the reason is that, in the period 2019 to 2021, south of Pir Panjal and Delta Force itself, we eliminated 10 terrorists. One on the national highway, traveling on a bus, on a goods carrying vehicle, a truck. And we recovered virtually an entire inventory of NATO forces equipment. So the fact is that they are highly sophisticated weaponry being given now. The cadre which is coming in, while the newspaper reports suggest that they could be military background, especially of our Western neighbors. But to my mind, it doesn't really need to be military background. Also, they have enough number of combat hardened personnel, whether it be second tier or third tier terrorists, who have fought not only with the alongside the Taliban, who have had years of experience and probably right now maybe looking for other avenues, because if they are second tier and third tier, they are no more in the inner circle of the Taliban. So their availability for whether for money, whether for other incentives is optimum. So those people can easily be brought in, and there are a number of videos which are there, which can, probably on YouTube also, but with the field formations, that they bring that training to their actions in these areas. They move like in a tactical formation. They move like trained soldiers. So the encounters, when the military goes or the army goes to seek an encounter, when it seeks encounter, the encounter doesn't pan out as we expect it to. So this is a changed playbook which they are using. They are sending hardened ones. And one of the things which is probably happening is, again, when you compare it to, let's say, 5 years ago, the mainstay of the actions by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir was dictated by the Tanzeems, which were present there. And the back-end support was provided by the deep state across. But what you see, I mean, from what you can infer right now is that the current control, even tactical and operational control, is probably being exercised by the deep state, with the Tanzeems providing local support. So the entire methodology is being reversed on its head. So when the Tanzeems are kept out of it, other than providing navigational, logistics, directional, and early warning support, whereas the actual actions are being dictated by the deep state as to exactly as to what actions need to be carried out and how are they going to do it. They have said, I believe now they have stopped intermingling with the locals, especially to the south of Pir Panjal, because they have enough areas. They took about a year, is what I hear. From 2020 to 2021, they were given the task by their handlers to map forested areas, to map. They inserted people, whether through the IB and in trickles through the LC, wherever the fence was there. And movement across the IB is actually facile. And that happens, which we are seeing even now with the encounters which are taking place and the actions which they are doing. And within in a year, they stocked those hideouts. In 2 encounters which we had in Delta Force, the hideouts were in the upper reaches, and it is virtually impossible to spot it unless you land on it. You walk over it. It is just a slit on the ground, and then it extends inside. So such like positions are numerous. You can't even mark that. It is that many. So the fact is that they would have scanned that, they would have identified it, stocked it, and then lying inside it rather than making contact so that human end develops, human end sources giving away their locations and leading to encounters. That is reduced. And the second thing with difference I want to bring out here is the success in the valley happened because triangulation, the terrorists there used mobile phones. And triangulation was so accurate that you could be led right up to the room he was operating in or the close area where he was hiding and speaking. Because many of them were local terrorists. They wanted to contact home. They wanted to speak to people they know. But the people now coming in don't use mobile phones. And in south of Pir Panjal, triangulation takes you in a 4 square kilometer area. That's about it. Even if he's using a mobile phone, there is a 2% chance of hitting on anybody, because of the towers being so limited and the terrain being so rugged. So technical intelligence actually was of not much use or minimal use south of Pir Panjal, and we had to depend on human intelligence, which was also few and far in coming. So in my prognosis as to how we go about it, there is a operational solution to it, but it's a very fatiguing solution. So, but that is the people on ground will have to decide as to how best to go about it, right? Nomenclature change I want to just touch upon before, I think I may be overshooting my time. The nomenclature change, yes. The terrorists have, repackaged themselves as far as name goes into a more revolutionary context rather than an Islamist hardline context. And that is for obvious reasons. Anything which connotes Islamist hardline does not have global support at all. So it at once, puts them in the other side of the pale. However, if you package yourself as a legitimate resistance force, then possibly you do not raise those hackles which a religious hardline force or a nomenclature would raise. And therefore, they now come across as a broad-based resistance movement rather than a movement which is based on religion. So the last point in this is, of course, there are 2 kinds of encounters in J&K which are taking place. One is targeted killings. The one last point after this, I would like to talk just a bit on minority killing. So some targeted killings of outsiders, odd minority, SPO, paramilitary. So some of these killings, they give to that so-called terminology which J&K police use, hybrid terrorist. the sleeper who works with is part of the population, but is awakened and activated to carry out an easy task, and he goes back into his role in society. And the ones with the security forces are the ones are being carried out by those who are getting infiltrated in and who have the wherewithal to withstand these contacts and probably survive these contacts to operate again. So you have these two kind of mixes which are right now happening. And lastly, as far as the minority killing goes, it doesn't appear to be that pronounced, because minority killings are double-edged. And probably this is one thing I'm sticking my neck out and saying this, but probably the disruption of the normalcy narrative right now does not suit them to start targeting minorities, because then there is global opprobrium also on this. So the Riyasi one is an outlier. The Riyasi thing is an outlier because to my mind, from what I hear is, it has got something to do with delimitation. And with the delimitation, what happens is one of the areas or sub-blocks goes into Rajouri district from Kalakot. And when that happens, the population demographics change. So this is primarily a message to say that voting has to be done with a lot of thought. Don't go into voting just on numbers. So this is a multi-layered aspect. We can't simplify it as to this is the reason or that is the reason. But there are multiple layers to this. But one of the layers is the political delimitation messaging, which is probably could have happened. So finally, I would only like to say, the entire IS situation in Jammu and Kashmir is based on three pillars. The counter IS strategies based on three pillars. One is political, that you have to have political freedom for the local political voice to make itself felt. These assembly elections are a step in that direction. Hopefully, these incidents, to my mind, one of the aims could also be to try and postpone those assembly elections, because then that shows there is no normalcy. And second, there is no participation. And then when there is no participation locally, then obviously there is an insider-outsider divide which comes in. So that is one. Next is development. The development one, I have seen this closely. We had a great opportunity after abrogation. However, the rollout by our ability administratively to leverage opportunities which were provided by abrogation, we were just not fast, agile, or competent enough to do that. And especially in south of Pir Panjal, where the terrain is so rugged and difficult, and the requirements are extremely fundamental, whether it be road, water, education, primary health care. I mean, these were all extremely doable as long as we were agile and fast enough to roll out these services. We could have shown the difference between the two. But this has been my point earlier also. And I had at that time said that the military or the army needs to be a stakeholder in this. We are the only presence in some of these remote villages. So we should be a stakeholder in this, because it is a security function. Administration is a security function because it creates grievances which then translate into support. So that is one thing which we probably need to do, but that happens. The intelligence, yes, human, as per the JK police figures, 70% is human. This is something which we need to take, because Valley, I know for sure that Tech Int was the major reason that we were getting that success. If you are getting human, it is good. Human is the only way south of Pir Panjal. There is no doubt about it, unless we get to know exactly as to the presence of people. And that is the last encounter which took place in Desa forest area, was because we were seeking encounter there based on information. But we our troops ran into a prepared group there, which then, in that exchange of fire, we came off worse in this. But the way out is, the only way forward is to human intelligence. So I think...
Yeah, time is up.
Right, okay. Sorry. And anti-radicalization info ops, ultimately we are making the issue in this is that why are they recording their actions? Why are they putting it out in social media? Obviously, you want credibility with the population that we are a viable force. We are there, and we can give a fitting reply to whatever the security forces' actions are. So the security forces need to be extremely careful and not antagonizing by those actions of which are anti-people kind of actions, whatever be the provocation. And second is we need to put our counter narrative in as fast as they put their information operations, they activate that. So we again have to be extremely agile and fast in that. We try and coordinate so many things that by the time the counter narrative comes out, it is too late. So anti-radicalization also, I'm talking about anti-radicalization rather than de-radicalization. So with the Jamaat influence, in spite of the ban on it, still I believe widespread. So there is a need for us to think that through. There are solutions to it, but we can discuss that in the question and answer. But thank you so much. And I'm again sorry for the interruption, as also overshooting my time. Thank you.
Thank you, General Ravi Murugan. Very well covered talk. And I would just like to highlight the very important point he brought up was the change of command from the Tanzims to the deep state. This is worrying because Pakistan's sustenance is going to be on this deep state and their operations in India. Then the other things which was brought out is very valid. The violence cannot be restricted to Valley, and Valley as such is not controlled. It has to go all over the place. That is another one of the aspects which has been given this thing. Then the other aspect, the terrain in South supports terrorists. It's very evident because since I have served in the Northeast as well as this place, if an ambush takes place in Northeast, it is 100% successful for the terrorist. The same thing is happening in this place. This is a very important thing which we are aware of because Army has gone through this thing. Whenever there's an ambush in Mizo Hills or in Nagaland or this thing in hill sector, it is very difficult to get out of it. We lost Colonel N.J. Nair like that. And the third aspect which he has brought out is these terrorists currently are equally trained like a Fauji. So he is not requiring support of ex-servicemen coming from Pakistan. So this is a very important aspect because he has already gone through Taliban. He has already gone through various other things. There is enough number of people who can infiltrate and come. Also, our own people who are here on that side and trained, and they are equally good. So this is a very important aspect to be considered. Then the preparation they have done before this point, which is brought, the preparation they have done coming in, doing all the recce of this thing, mapping all the forest and making hideouts in this thing is a very important aspect. Probably there was a laxity in in our side. That is the reason probably they would have come and done this. But like he said, you can the Pir Panjal ranges can be used for just getting into this. And LC was they can come just like that. You don't have to carry weapons and all those things. Then the weapons. What was left by the NATO and USA was totally used by these people, which improved their communication system and improved their, target eliminating capability. The name change to have the global support for, resistance front, and, though they are affiliated, just give the name change to ensure that we are only fighting for our freedom and things like that, so that they get local, support from all over the world. And the development after abrogation, I totally agree with this. So that is why I brought up the point of, the civil administration reaching the areas which is, there are a whole lot of problems. They are slowly getting alienated from the government because of this. When the abrogation was done, probably that was a time which was, which could have ensured development of the area, which has not happened. Whereas Valley, everybody was thinking about Valley and that happened, but not in this area. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to, now I would request the next panelist, Brigadier Hemant Mahajan, Youth Seva Medal. And I'll just introduce him. Brigadier Hemant Mahajan, Youth Seva Medal, is from Maratha Light Infantry. And he holds a postgraduate degree from DSSC and MPhil in Defense Studies. He has vast experience of serving in all insurgency and terrorism affected areas of India. He commanded his battalion 7 Maratha Line in the difficult terrain of Punch. So he was commanding there in Punch and Rajouri during the times of highest militancy. That was what General Murugan was mentioning, the highest militancy in 90s. While he was in command, his unit was awarded unit citation for the excellent work done by the unit. Unit citation by the Chief of Army Staff. His battalion got 18 gallantry awards, and you can imagine how much terrorists he would have killed. And his the way he took them, permitting them to infiltrate, come to a killing ground and kill them. These are lessons which were taught to us at that time. After retirement, he is involved and he was awarded the Yusseva Medal. After retirement, he is involved in research of national security issues, and he is a passionate and prolific writer on national security issues. He is regular on YouTube and is a regular blogger as well. And who was right, who else we could have got, commanding that area and knowing the ground level as well as the operational level. And we are very happy to have you, sir. Please give your pearls of wisdom. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Can my presentation be shown? Just have a look. Athreya?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is the first slide. I tried to sort of present it myself, but it wasn't working. Okay, that is the topic which you have given to me. Actually, the problem is, when you're the third speaker in a seminar, whatever you want to say has already been said. Sandeep gave a very detailed introduction, followed by General Murugan. He covered everything. So now I'm wondering, what do I cover? I mean, and then to top it all, Sandeep had to again summarize what General Murugan said, So I really had at my wit's end. But go out to the second slide, please. This was a book I wrote. When I was in staff college, I wrote a dissertation on challenges in J&K. What else can be done? So when I went to the higher command, I wrote a dissertation on challenges in J&K and what else can be done. And then I was a DS in the higher command even for 4 years. And I can only say this much, that the present army commander is my student. The previous army commander or the present chief was my student. The previous army chief was my student. Of course, don't blame me for the situation deteriorating. Maybe we weren't good enough, I suppose, situation getting bad. But I can say that they're all my students, Actually, the challenge, go to the next slide. I've written two books on it. And I've written a hell of a lot of articles on this issue and whatnot. Next slide, please. Now I'll just show you the map of J&K only for 1 minute for the people who are not as familiar with J&K as many of us would be. All that I want you to see here is what is shown in the black is the LAC, which is with Ladakh, and what is shown in pink is basically the LOC, 778 kilometers, which the people in uniform know that the LOC is manned by the Indian Army. While what you see in black beneath that, nearly 198 kilometers in the state of J&K is the international boundary, which is manned by the BSF. And I'm sure those of you who are reading newspapers regularly would remember that the DG BSF has recently been sacked because of this infiltration that has gone on inside from the international border, and so also his let's say number 2 who was manning the western borders. Okay. So that tells you as to how effective they have been. One should be casting aspersions on people, but the newspaper reports are very clear. And to top it on, I was just about 4 months back, I was in J&K traveling all over, and some of my observations are a bit of contradiction to what General Murugan said, especially with regard to the developmental process that is taking place in the areas of Poonch, Rajouri. I went to all the areas of Poonch, Rajouri, Surankot. But of course, I didn't have the time to go to the depth areas where he commanded his force. Okay, I'll talk about it a bit later. But the other part, initially the terrorist violence used to take place in the valley. Now it is shifted down south of Pir Panjal. Some reasons General Murugan gave. And what I'll do is now, since I don't want to repeat what he said, I will try and tell you something else. As far as valley is concerned, I traveled into the valley. And I spent nearly 7 days there. I went up to the Dhodila Pass, and what I found was that there were 2 crore tourists which were sort of carrying out tourism in this area. South of Pir Panjal, all the places were full. Would you believe that when I went to Poonch, where I commanded my battalion in Doda area, I got caught into a traffic jam. I repeat again, I got caught into a traffic jam. And when I traveled on my op track where my battalion was located, the Doda battalion, Pindi, Sandeep may remember it because I think you had come in the same area sometime later. in 95 to 98, when I commanded the battalion there used to be only one vehicle, that was the commanding officer, which used to travel there. And today I saw 500 vehicles there, all more posher than what the vehicle that I own in Pune. Okay. And the kind of houses that were there when I left, it was all dhokes. I'm sure the army people know dhokes, but others would know what dhokes stand about. It is all built up houses 10 times larger than the house that I own in AWHO Pune in Salunke Vihar. And similarly is the kind of prosperity that I saw in Punch, I saw in Rajouri, I saw in various places. When I tried to go on the off track from Krishna Ghati to Bhimbargali, I got lost. There used to only be one track there. Now the number of roads that have come up, the number of tourists that have visited, I mean, your eyes will turn white. Just go ahead, please. What I want to tell you is the next slide, that is the various wars that we have fought. What I want to tell you is there are reasons which everybody gives as to why the violence is increased now. I put it this way, it's like a basketball game, rotating the strike, The main reason why the violence is increased or will continue to happen is Pakistan, supported by China. Okay. And I don't want to get into the wars, how the wars were fought. I don't want to get into the Operation Karakoram. I don't want to talk about Khalistani terrorism. I don't want to talk about, let's say, Kashmir terrorism, proxy war, etc. Next slide, please. But what I want to tell you is, next slide, is the ISI tactics. Initially, in the early part of the service, we used to show a slide saying ISI bleeding India by 1,000 cuts. Okay. Now it is no more 1,000 cuts, meaning, bomb blast here and bomb blast there, that kind of a thing. Now it is by 1,000 agitations, 10,000 activists, 10,000 NGOs. Today, Maharashtra, there are agitations going on which stop the economic progress. Basically, Pakistan is intelligent enough to understand, China is intelligent enough to understand that by killing few people here and there, they're not going to liberate Kashmir. There's no doubt on that issue. But what they possibly want to do is, especially China, is they want to reduce your economic progress so that you do not come up as a competitor to China. So there are activists, activists to stop all developmental activities. There's a big port which is going to come up in Maharashtra, which is going to be one of the biggest container ports. They are trying to stop it. The government had made a plan in South Nicobar to have a transshipment port there, which will be one of the biggest in the world. And if anybody who's been to Nicobar Islands know as to how convenient it is, that is big stop, And there are activists, there are NGOs who will do anything and everything to stop a developmental activity. Yeah, go to the next slide, please. And the last line you please read, governments may change, but ISI will continue to bleed India with 1,000 cuts. Every prime minister down the line tried to make friends with Pakistan, right from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to Lal Bahadur Shastri, Tashkent Agreement, Indira Gandhi, Simla Agreement, and cut it short, come to the present Prime Minister. He tried to invite, the Pakistani Nawaz Sharif for his inauguration when he came to power in 2014. And as if this was not good enough, when he came up in his third term, there are a lot of retired community which stays here, and some of them do specialize in what is called as the track to diplomacy. I don't want to give their names, because all of you will know them. So one of these experienced track to diplomats told me that there has been some kind of a understanding between Nawaz Sharif, the tallest Pakistani politician, and our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, in which they have said that we are going to have, an agreement. We'll give a bit of thing here and there on J&K, and the peace will return to J&K. And I was very, very skeptical as far as this part was concerned, because I've heard these stories in the past also. And they said, no, his daughter, Maryam Nawaz Sharif, has herself said she went, when the jathas of our pilgrims went to the Gurudwara there, she went and met them, she spoke to them in Punjabi and that kind of a thing. And people, the track to diplomats really thought that the peace was around the corner. I'll quickly get out to the one thing that is, when we talk of J&K, we should also link it up with the internal security challenges that we have in the country, that is the Maoists and the Nakshals, then the Bangladeshis who are infiltrating into our northeast, and suddenly Bangladeshis were in limelight, and how the whole media is now focusing on how illegal migration may increase, how Hindus may come there, how Hindus will get killed there. I'll not talk about it, but all these things, be it Maoist, be it Bangladeshization of Northeast or India, be it educational terrorism, be it radicalization, be it proxy war in J&K, all have linkages. That is all that I'm trying to tell you. Don't look at J&K as only one aspect. Next slide, please. What I want to tell you is, today, just leave this aside, terrorism, educational terrorism. Let's talk about, go ahead, please. Next slide, next slide, next slide. Show the, next slide again. Yeah, all that I want to tell you is about Naxalism or the Maoism. Still today, in the third term of this government, is occupying nearly 20% of the area, and they are not letting you carry any development there. Next slide. Next slide. Then as far as the Bangladeshi infiltration is concerned, 35% of this is that area where their bases are located, etc. I don't want to talk about it more. That can be a separate seminar by itself as to how the Maoists or the Naxals or the left-wing extremists or the left-wing terrorism are carrying out very activities, Next slide. The Bangladeshi illegal migration. 35% of the population of Assam is Bangladeshis, 29% of the population of West Bengal. And I have written a book on the subject. I have said in 2025, you can have a chief minister of Assam or West Bengal or Bangladeshi. Next slide, please. I'll come down to the topic of J&K only. I try to add this up because whatever I wanted to talk about J&K was, a lot of it was covered. So I thought I'll cover the background. Now, as far as J&K is concerned, we talk about the number of terrorists that were present at a point of time. And now the figure which is quoted regularly now is that the number of terrorists, active terrorists in J&K is between 150 to 200. Next slide, please. The next slide shows you the infiltration, how infiltration takes place, because I commanded a battalion in the counter-infiltration role, commanded a brigade in the counter-infiltration role. So this is basically not for the army officers who in any case know how anti-infiltration operations are carried out. And Sandeep talked about it in detail, talked about the HHTIs, talked about the thermal imaging, talked about pressure devices. I would talk about that as to what kind of a modus operandi you follow. But all that I want to tell you is that our counter-infiltration posture is fairly effective. And as per the intelligence reports, about 95% of terrorists who try to infiltrate on the LOC get killed on the LOC. Barely 5% or even less manage to escape inside. Next slide, please. While on the international border, next slide. While on the international border, the percentage of terrorists getting inside is much larger. Okay. Incidentally, just for information, the present DGP of Jammu and Kashmir Police was the last SSP police when I was commanding the battalion in Punch, Kashmir Ranjan Swain. Okay, now I'll now show the word file, please. Okay, now I'll come down to some reasons as to why things have gone bad. Lok Sabha elections were there. The election, people voted the highest number, but the mainstream parties were defeated. The terrorist attacks increased south of Pir Panjal regions. Some have been told to you. Attacks were on the Indian Army. The earlier attacks used to be on the soft targets like the women, the Hindus, the migrants. Now, in this time, the attacks are on the Indian Army. Now, the figures of Indian Army soldiers lost has been told to you. But what I want to tell you right now is that during the same period, Pakistan has lost 344 soldiers. The number of soldiers which Indian Army is lost as per South Asian Terrorism Portal is 19, while as per SATP, I'm sure most of you are aware of South Asian Terrorism Portal, 344 Pakistani soldiers have been killed in the anti-terror operations in Pakistan. So basically, if you study the Pakistani media, there's a feeling there that the Balochistan Liberation Army, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, various groups there are being supported by India, Indian agencies, whatnot, etc. And we all know that a number of terrorist leaders have also been killed there. 19 or 20 is the number. And there is a feeling that this is being done by India, by agencies, etc. Next slide, please. So therefore, one school of thought is, if India can target us, we also tell them that even we can do the same thing. So therefore, Pakistan may be taking a revenge of what is happening to them in Balochistan, in federally assembled tribal areas, in Waziristan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region, in borders next to the, let's say, the Durand line or borders between Pakistan and Afghanistan, etc. Okay. And then there is a flood of information on the social media, people talking of, another Kargil being attempted. General Murugan has talked about the kind of preparation that they made. Though the figure of 600, which was being quoted, obviously is on the higher side, that may not be easy. But yes, definitely 50, 60, 70 is the kind of a figure that one hears regularly when you talk to the officers, And there are two reasons why the thing increased at a tactical level, which General Murugan talked about. The Rashtriya Rifles was removed from there, so therefore there was a vacuum, and therefore a space became vacant, and then these people who came inside would go and establish their bases. So that was a tactical reason. Next slide. But there are, I personally feel there are strategic reasons. Tactical reason is one, but the other reasons are that we have not been able to, let's say, stop infiltration from the international border. And when you talk of international border, don't restrict yourself only to the terrorists who are infiltrating. Those of you who study Punjab would know that in the year 2023, 288 drones came inside, each drone capable of carrying 15 to 16 kg of narcotics. This is the figure given by the BSF. Actual figure is much more. Anybody good at mathematics can find out the amount of narcotics that has been pumped into Punjab. And some of my friends in Punjab tell me, maybe all of you will have enough friends in Punjab, they tell me that today almost 45 to 50% of youth today are drug addicts in Punjab. I hope the figures are wrong, and I hope the figures are much lesser than what I'm quoting. But I was in Punjab incidentally for about almost 3 months, and I can tell you something, but leave it at that. So narco-terrorism is taking place. Narco-terrorism is taking place even in Rajasthan, and I have written a book on coastal security. Let me tell you, drugs worth 10,000 crores have been caught by the Coast Guard into the Arabian Sea. Okay, and whatever you catch, a figure nearly 2 times or 3 times actually gets inside unchecked. So therefore, Pakistan is attempting to send narcotics to you, terrorists to you, illegal trade, and all kinds of things are happening. So don't think that it is only restricted to the state of J&K. Violence, terrorist violence, yes, is in J&K, but other forms of terrorism, including fake Indian currency notes, including smuggling of gold, is taking place on the coastline also, and also taking place on the international border of Punjab and other places. Go to the next slide, please. Now, Pakistan, what it wants to do is, presently, it feels that the current Indian government is weak. If it wants to carry out a surgical strike, it will have to carry political parties with it, and political parties may not support it. And there are any number of conspiracy theories floating around on the social media as to how many leaders of political parties contacting people whom they should not be contacting at all. And at this same point of time, there's a chaos going on in the world. There are 55 to 60 wars that are going on. So what this world war has to do with Kashmir, or with the topic which Brigadier Sandeep has given, that this thing is very simple. The policeman of the world, United States of America, today has no time to tell Pakistan or tell it to anybody that please stop. Their attention is completely focused on the Ukraine war, Ukraine-Russia war, Hamas war, Hezbollah war, Iran threatening to attack Israel. The American fighter planes are flying over this. So actually what has happened is today that world is more focused on Ukraine war, Hamas war, Hezbollah war, etc. And next slide, please. And the worst worry that the Americans have is that while this is going on, China may take an advantage and carry out an all-out attack on Taiwan. In any case, anybody who's been studying Taiwan will know that there's a fair amount of gray zone warfare which China is doing on Taiwan. There have been about 250 or 260 air intrusions by the Chinese Air Force, in which 50 to 60 fighter aircraft have been crossing into the air boundaries of Taiwan. The maritime boundaries of Taiwan has been violated nearly 150 times. And this can be a separate subject by itself as to how China is carrying out gray zone activities. guerrilla activities is okay up to a point, but when it gets converted into an all-out war, an amphibious attack plus a physical attack and all, you may have a problem. And at the same time, the second, let's say, world power, Russia, can do nothing except fight a war in Ukraine. The third world power in the world, Europe, is passing through such a phase that nobody knows what's happening in Britain, what's happening in Europe. So all that I'm trying to propound the theory is world is at war, and world doesn't have time to look as to what is happening in the state of J&K. The United Nations Security Council, the world organizations, we should keep a tag and tell Pakistan do something about it. They're doing nothing about it. Go to the next slide, please. And it is at this stage that, I'll just cover 2 points. What has been done up till now, this has been covered by Sandeep as well as General Murugan, that we have now deployed more forces there. The vacuum has been, is being occupied. More special forces have come up. More drones have been inducted. So it is very, very clear that in another 3 to 4 months' time, all those people who have come inside will get eliminated. That I have no doubt. Anybody who's come inside south of Pir Panjal, one thing is very clear, that they cannot go back. But is there something else that we can do? We are carrying out relentless counter-infiltration and counter-terrorist operations, which is every day, every second day, you hear the operations. And just 2 days back, we lost again 2 soldiers in the area, in the valley, etc. Okay, I think first most important lesson that we learn out of this increased violence is that we have to take care of our own national interest. No country, including USA, Russia, United Nations, is going to help us. We have to take care of the security challenges that we face, and we have to find Indian solutions to these security challenges. Secondly, the counter-infiltration operations and counter-terrorist operations that we carry out are basically defensive in nature. Counter-infiltration operation to try and stop infiltration, which is coming from the LOC in counter-terrorist, who is infiltrated inside. You, based on actionable intelligence, etc., you ensure that they are killed. They are okay. They must be done. But is there something more that we can do? Are there any offensive measures that we can do to increase the cost of terrorism for Pakistan? And in fact, I really wish I could have sent you a copy of my book, how to fight a proxy war of J&K. Unfortunately, the copy is sold out a long time back, and it has made no difference to anybody except, including me also. But the point, I mean, the measures that I have given are the same measures which you have to keep on doing again and again. I don't want to repeat it: information war and cyber war and conventional war, etc. So, is there any surgical strike 3 you can do? Can you do a strike with the help of drones? Can you do a strike with the help of missiles, which are becoming all-out very important weapons in the Hezbollah war, in the Hamas war, in this thing? And Sandeep, I promised to finish off in next 2-3 slides. You don't need to worry about my time frame, So you can use drones, you can use missiles. Let the previous slide remain, please. You can use, fighter aircraft if need be. You can use also, we can give our Indian Navy the chance to carry out a surgical strike, because they are envying us. The army keeps on getting chance to go across the borders and they don't get it. So we can give them a chance and do something, But I think there are many options available, and each of the options has advantages and disadvantages. Not a place to discuss these, But I think the most important thing that we need to do is break Pakistan into 3 or 4 independent states. I repeat my statement again: break Pakistan into 3 and 4 parts. And this is the slide. This is the solution to the problem. Pakistani occupied Kashmir joins our Kashmir. What is shown in green goes to Afghanistan. Balochistan becomes a separate state, and Punjab becomes a separate state. Not state, I mean a country. And even Sindh will become a separate country. Now, obviously, it will take some time. It's not going to be easy. But well, we have been fighting the terrorist, Operation Karakoram, as it's called, or Operation, this thing, since 1972. And how many years? 28 plus, let's say 24, over 40 years. So maybe another 5-10 years, if we can go all out and, sort of break Pakistan, because the moment you broke Pakistan into Bangladesh and this, their efficiency on the eastern border in terms of carrying out military activities reduced. Of course, they use new tactics of infiltrating human beings from there. Go to the second last slide, please. Slide before that. So therefore, I think before that, behind, go behind. Now, a very short prognosis. Pakistan is not going to change, and we can keep on discussing till the time the cows come home as to what can be done at a tactical level, at this level. But this kind of a warfare, we are going to stop. So diplomacy can only play a complementary role. We have to use a lot of military means, including breaking Pakistan, to have a long-lasting solution. Unless because Nawaz Sharif or the political component of Pakistan simply doesn't have the power to nullify the Pakistani army, take power in their own hands, and then ask for peace with India. That is not going to be. So all confidence building measures are not, we can keep on trying. Calibrated support to terrorists will continue. And Pakistan has tremendous capacity to have terrorists. Their terrorism, be it recruits, be it finances, they have quite a bit of resources, and it's not going to be easy to stop it. So therefore, we have got to have a long-term solution. While we must restore peace south of Pir Panjal, but as a long-term solution, we have to keep on improving the capability of our counter-infiltration operations, counter-terrorist operations, and we have to use all means that are available at our disposal to sort of break Pakistan into many parts. The next slide, please. And what is going to, next slide. And in this whole warfare, we are going to lose a lot of blood, unfortunately. My battalion is there. Again, they lost some people. I mean, I feel sad. I lost people long time back. And show my last slide. Of all the gifts that the king can give, it is not the gift of gold, but it is the gift of land, not the gift of land or the gift of cows, which is important, but it is the gift of security. Unfortunately, the challenges to India's national security, be it internal, be it external, be it in hybrid domain, be it in multi-war domain, be it in unrestricted warfare domain, are quite a few. And each of these challenges has to be met head-on. Purely thinking of Kashmir, purely thinking of operations south of Pir Panjal is not going to help you, but a comprehensive all-out war against all our enemies and all factors that fuel this war is what is going to take us to the solution. Last slide is, of course, God and the soldier, all men adore in the times of danger and not before. When the danger is gone, all things are righted. God is forgotten and the soldier is lighted. Is the old slide which talks about the soldier. Technology is coming up, but the human element is still going to be important. And the Ukraine war is more or less proved. You can have any amount of technology, but it is the man on ground who uses the technology, who uses the weapon, is still going to be important, especially so in the Indian context. And the last slide, if I have finishing now, and if there is anything that you want to tell me, if anything that I said is not correct, anything that you want to discuss, anything you want to debate, anything on anything, we are all open. But remember, 1972 to 2024, we have not been able to stop Operation Karakoram. So therefore, plan for next 5-10 years, and maybe you'll get a solution if you're able to break Pakistan into various different countries. I finished. Sandeep, over to you.
Thank you, sir. In fact, a very detailed overview of the things which has come out from Brigadier Mahajan, sir. And before I go to the next one, if there are any questions, please write the questions in the chat box. You please write the questions in the chat box and in call messages, and that can be taken on. You can write the question is to whom. So just to summarize what Brigadier Mahajan has said, he has given an overall view of the things which are affecting the Kashmir imbroglio, especially in the south of Pir Panjal. He has covered it very nicely from the strategic point of view, and what we are supposed to do and how the deep state is involved in this thing, with the help of across the world, many other players who are going to destabilize us to ensure that we remain dependent on people. And the point which he initially brought out was a development in Rajouri Poonch sector alongside the national highway. That's a very, since you have seen it yourself, it is a point which people have, their development in the sense they have become richer, they could afford to do things. And but probably the people who have gone out and got the money and come out, but inside the thing, what exactly is happening, especially into the deep areas, is a thing which we have to further study and work out. That's my point of view. And I just wanted to mention another thing. There's a guy from Valley who was a terrorist, sympathizer merchant who was won the elections and he is still in the jail. And
Engineer Rashid.
Merchant.
No, Engineer Rashid.
Engineer Rashid Merchant is. So this is a change. This is a major change in the in things which are happening there. Then the other point, which the point which was brought out, Pak deep state want to counter India because they are thinking that we are supporting Balochistan Liberation Army and the in the Fatwa area, Fatah area with the Tehrik-e-Taliban and things like that. And there are a lot of this unknown people getting involved in killing various people. So that's a very valid point. That is the reason which they want to attack Indian Army and give more casualties to Indian Army. That's a very important point which has to be considered at all levels. Infiltration. This is the point which has been told. In fact, this point, infiltration through the LC. This is what exactly General Murugan also has said. Ravi Murugan also said. In the sense, he said there are a lot of mapping and all those things are carried out for that. Probably they have come from LC, and LC is more porous because of various reasons. And they also realize that to come into these areas, they can come without weapons and as a normal human being. But it requires to be countered and checked, because number of vehicle bound, like in Doda also, people were traveling in vehicle and they were caught. Like he said, the chap was traveling in a lorry which is carrying stuff. So these things here, they are using it. That's absolutely correct what you said. And now the other thing is breaking Pakistan. That's one of the things which I said, breaking Pakistan into pieces. Now the involvement of BRI and the CPEC, it's very easy to say. This is my looking at it. It is not going to be a very easy thing, because China will get involved because they have put a lot of money there. Though even Chinese people are being sorted out by Pakistani terrorists at times. But breaking into this thing is going to be an all-out war, and we are getting into it. That's one of the options, but how effective it will be and how it is going to, are we prepared for it, and all those things are a mute question. And thank you very much, sir. You have covered at a very nice way things which you thought about, and your book would be always welcome. And I would now request questions to be coming. And the question from IIRF, that is Rishi.
No, that is group captain, sir.
Okay.
Above that.
Yeah. Why advanced surveillance drones are not used to track insurgents, and how effective they are? They are pretty effective in Gaza war. Why not here? I would put this question across to General Ravi Murugan.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question in the sense that, technology has been inserted in every conflict and drones are the flavor of the season. But the point here is that, you're talking about terrain which is vast. It is not like Gaza, which is a sandbox. You fly, a retinue of drones, you'll probably cover that entire area. Here, unless you have prior information of movements which have been spotted and you fly a drone, then there are chances of you trying to identify that, whether you are able to penetrate through foliage, being able to see through vegetation, which are the odds of. So there are multiple factors at play, environmental factors at play to see the effectiveness of it. But having said that, it cannot be gainsaid that it will value add it if you are able to use it at the right time and at the right place. But as a prophylactic measure wherein we are maintaining 24-hour watch, to my mind, that is not possible in view of the vastness and the nature of terrain.
Okay, thank you. The next question again from
that's from Rishi.
Rishi is, to what extent is there cultural integration of the Jammu region with the national mainstream? Are the people there linguistically, religiously closer to Pakistan? How many Dogra Muslims are in the central government services, maritime forces, air force, etc.? So this question I would request Brigadier Mahajan, Brigadier Hemant Mahajan to take it up.
Okay, first is cultural integration. There are enough, let's say, radio stations of Doordarshan available, TVs are available, there are newspapers. I'm sure my friends in the army know that Daily Excelsior is a newspaper which is run by whom, you know. I mean, it's one of the most popular newspapers in J&K, you know, and it gives a very nationalist view of any issues. There's a fair amount of program that keep on going on Doordarshan, on the radio, etc. Music and culture and dances and cuisine and all. Okay, it keeps on going on. Recently, I mean, just about when I was in Kashmir, there was a cultural function which they held in Kupwara. Sorry, I forgot his name. There's a huge function in the Dras. Not Kupwara, but one of the valleys next to it. Gurez, in the Gurez Valley, you know, the tigers of Gurez burst to that because of all arts and this thing, dancing of that valley, which was showcased and all. And also what has happened is, you know, in addition to this, the government has also tried to increase border tourism. Let me talk about it for 30 seconds, you know. Now, initially, tourists used to go on the known tourist circuits of J&K, that is, you know, Jammu, you see some temples, then you go to Srinagar, you see 2-3 things there, and then you go on the Kargil road and see those 2-3 places like there which are shooting, where shooting also takes place. But now a lot of new valleys have been opened up, and government has promoted border tourism. The place where I was located, imagine there was in Punch town, in Rajouri town, there are home tourism places are available. And I also want to tell you here, I'll again repeat tourism for the second time. I moved in Valley for nearly 30 days, just about 4 months back. Now, would you believe so many hotels have come up there? Would you believe, Sandeep, you'll be happy to know that Vada Pav, which is a specialty of the Maratha regiment, is available in Srinagar. Okay, so you no need to carry your stock from here if you visit Goan Valley. Gujarati cuisine is available in Pahalgam. Marathi cuisine is available there. Why is it available there? Simply because the number of tourists going there is so high that the local people have to cater for the butt taste of the tourists who go there. So to that extent, a national integration is taking place, because in fact, when we asked, one of the drivers who were the local there, he said, we want to eat there. He says, "Sir, आप कृष्णा hotel में जाइए, वहाँ पे ये खाना अच्छा मिलेगा." So he recommended us a hotel, which we thought he'll recommend some Kashmiri hotel, etc. You know, all that I'm trying to tell you is the hoteling industry has got a lot of people inside, and let me tell you, the number of migrants, despite all the terror attacks, is fairly large even in Valley also, even in Punch, Rajouri also. Exact numbers I would not know, that somebody will have to really do the homework, but that number is quite large. So that way, cultural integration, developmental initiatives have been taking place, border villages integration they're trying to do, etc. As far as Pakistan is concerned, nobody has got any love for Pakistan. That I can tell you. You know, initially, Pakistan factor was being said. There are 3 options available to Kashmiris. One is to become independent, which economically is not feasible. Secondly, is to join Pakistan. Pakistan is no more an option. I spoke to a lot of people, and I'm not talking of Fauji's, you know. I'm talking about when went outside and all, you know. That is no more an option. Most important reason is today the tourist population in Kashmir is about 2 times the population of Kashmir state as such. POK, nobody comes. After all, people in today, Punch, Rajouri, all those areas try and compare themselves with, they have relations on the side of Pakistani occupied Kashmir, and they find that nothing is, today the roads that have become so good that, would you believe that you can reach from, let's say, infrastructure has been a tremendous development, and it is one of the best national integrator of all times. I repeat it again. Jammu to my convoy of my battalion came from Srinagar to Jammu in about 6 hours. From Srinagar to Dras, they went in about 5 hours. From Dras to this thing. anywhere and everywhere, so many roads have come up. And the moment you build up roads, Sandeep, I would like to tell you that we spent all our lifetime eating hard variety of vegetables, kaddus and all, and that's how our health remains good, because if you eat kaddus, health remains good, But now all the vegetables that are available in the Pune market are available in the Punch market, are available in Srinagar. The markets are flooded with fruits from Punjab or vegetables from Punjab and everything. The main reason is obviously the ease of transportation. And when this railway gets through, the people in Kashmir today are getting scared. The Delhi people will flood Kashmir Valley so much that there'll be a problem. So they are saying we should try and limit the number of trains that come from Delhi, because on Saturday, Sunday, the metro city people must go on a vacation. That concept has come up in India in a big way. If you don't go on the tourist somewhere, then you are no good. So transportation has been one of the biggest integrators. So culture is one aspect. The government is doing things are happening. Festivals are taking place, musical festivals, dance festivals, etc. So that is happening. But again, there will be a small percentage of people, call it OGWs, call it the Jamaat supporters, call it the radicals, etc. That 5-10% of population winning their hearts and minds is not going to be easy. But I would say that most of the people there will want to have a job. They're asking for job, like the way you ask jobs in the rest of the part of the country. We want jobs, we want development, we want this. So to my mind, terrorism, when controlled, will only speed up the developmental process. So that is good. One need to worry too much about integration, etc. And I've given quite a longish answer, but surgical strike 3, you can hand it over to General Murugan.
I'll ask the question. Only thing is that the other questions I would like to take, the central government services, maritime forces, air force, etc. is not a thing for us to answer. That you'll have to do an RTI and find out. Okay. Then the surgical strike, what is the role of joint and integrated forces in defense? Request Ravi Murugan to take.
Sorry, I couldn't get your question fully. Surgical strike, what is the role of?
No, he's asking surgical strike. What is the role of joint and integrated forces and defense?
Right. I mean, I presume by surgical strike, you're talking about trans-border strike. That's what, because surgical strike could be anywhere. It could be cis-frontier also. It could be in your own terrorist hideout, can be a surgical strike because it is precise, with zero collateral. But I presume that the question relates to trans-border or trans. My perspective in this is that any action which you take cannot be a single service action. Because ultimately you are leveraging the potentialities of multiple weapon systems being handled by agencies which are different services. So you do not get the combat advantage and whatever that you are planning, whatever strike you're planning, unless the forces used are multi-domain. And for forces to be multi-domain, obviously other services has to get integrated into that particular action. So the importance of integrated forces, there is no gainsaying that at all. It is a requisite for any military action. The collaboration and the coordination and the synergization of application of multiple forces, again, there is no question at all. For maximum effect, you have to integrate and synergize that. So in general, that is what I feel. But if the question is in particular to what Mahajan has recommended, then I would hand over to General Mahajan.
Okay, he has meant that only. And the next question is from Namrata Dasmana. How can we think of deterrence in militant activities? Having tech solutions for mobile encryption with reasonable decent frequency is quite successful. How can we think of deterrence in militant activities? Having tech solutions for mobile encryption with reasonable decent frequency is quite successful. Yeah, I would like General Ravi to take it up.
So, firstly, as far as deterrence in militant terrorist activity, that's a tough question. The first thing which, if you ask me, again, this is a multi-pronged endeavor. And the first one is we need to protect ourselves. The way to deter a terrorist, if a terrorist is attempting to strike a security force camp or personnel or a group, if it doesn't get success by virtue of the actions which we take, whether it be preventive, prophylactic, or responsive, then if the aim of his strike gets defeated by us not losing anybody, that takes care of the first aspect of it, because the application of force by the terrorist has not met the objective. He loses the support. Ultimately, as I said earlier, they videotape everything, because ultimately the credibility is based on the success of their actions. When you defeat the very success of a terrorist action, you are preventing them from gaining that credibility as a legitimate force. The second thing is, if you are able to now inflict damage on the terrorist, you make that entire endeavor futile. So will that deter them? Yes, it will impose caution on them. But their motivations are multifarious. So if the motivation is, I believe there are instances wherein a number of these were on drugs. You cannot really deter somebody who's on drugs. He's going to be doing that action. Second, it could be for monetary gains. Now you can deter them to an extent, but ultimately, if he's aiming to gain, wherever his family is gaining monetarily from wherever he's coming from, he is perforce compelled to take that action. But our aim should be to prevent the aims of that action being achieved. And the first aspect is to preventive aspect is first. The security forces cannot suffer casualties in this. And the second one is to impose damage on the perpetrator. So if we achieve both these things, the credibility gets eroded and some amount of caution is imposed, while increasing the ability of the security forces to act far more independently. They don't get constrained. So, that is my narrow view of this.
So my question here is, why can't we use the mobile detectors? Why can't we use the tech solutions to it? They're not very expensive. Though you just mentioned about the terrain of Pir Panjal ahead.
Yeah, I said this. I actually answered this. See, you're absolutely right. I had said this, that in the valley, a lot of our success was based on interception and triangulation, which were so precise, it would lead you to rooms and hideouts. But the problem in south of Pir Panjal is that the density of towers is far lesser. The separation is so much more that the triangulation gives you a 5 square kilometer area. Now, a 5 square kilometer in those rugged mountains is like searching for a needle in a haystack. So these technical solutions there are defeated. But now they're not using mobiles also, is what I hear. They're using encrypted radio. So that also gets, so you cannot really intercept that. In fact, I believe that the mapping which they are doing, they are using an app which I was not even aware. I believe some recoveries had an app called an Alpine app. And an Alpine app actually tells you and sends you a warning that you are now coming close to an area which has got a security force post. It, I believe, gives you those kinds of warnings. So they are using tech far more effectively, because it's a defensive aspect. It's all that which they're doing is passive defensive. So whereas when you're trying active, it becomes more difficult, is what I think. But I'm sure there'll be technical experts who should be looking at this far more deeply than me.
Sir, everything resorts on to the economic thing. We are still at 1.9% of defense economy. That Alpine is also a Chinese app.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Colonel Vijay has raised his hand. May I request you, sir, ask the question?
Yeah, Sandeep, first of all, congratulate to you and your team for a very interesting and a very contemporary topic. And I would also like to thank both the gentlemen experts, brilliant. And that's the advantage of attending some of these Fauji seminars, to the point, and no udhar ki idhar ki baat. I think within a short period, they're able to convey. I had a lot of doubts, but both the gentlemen, I think they covered as if anticipating most of the things. However, it's a very vast topic. I would still not exactly doubt. There will be a lot of questions, but due to constraint of time, I think some other day, or maybe I'll even write to them individually. Just a general point, Mahajan mentioned about some national integration through culinary and foods, and I think it's a very good point. But as a general, point of your inquisitory that thing. I wanted to know, after this abrogation of Article 370, wherein outsiders are permitted to buy properties, and I was told that very many big corporates like Taj and others have bought up the places. Is it correct? And are there common people buying? Because unless that transmigration takes place, the integration will take a very long time. Even this would take probably 2-3 decades, because there's a total demographic change. Unless that comes about, that would be one of the long term. So, Brigadier Mahajan, he's gone around, he's met so many people and all. Do you have any information, sir?
Okay, I'll offer you my comments. I did spend fair amount of time in both Valley as well as Punch, Rajouri, Sudankot, in that area. Data obviously I won't have because that has to come from a government agency. But Delhi Excelsior had a news on that day when I was there that one person outside the state of Punjab had purchased property there. That was one person. But the point, and some corporates, you're right, who want, especially the hoteling industry and all, they wanted to buy some land because you have an economy of scale before which you cannot construct a hotel or something like that. So some reports were there of some corporate people buying land. But I think more important than that, and that is what I want to emphasize on, is that the number of, if I may use the word outsiders, or number of Indians from mainland India inside J&K is quite large because of many reasons, and especially tourism, the taxi drivers, the restaurants, the people who are working there. But remember, the staff in the restaurants, let's say on the Jammu Srinagar highway or Srinagar this highway, almost 90% of the staff that I saw was non-Kashmiris. Please understand, people who were either from UP or Bihar or Bangladeshis or this thing, because hoteling is a low-paying industry. One person there, he has to do a job of a waiter also, plus cook also, plus wait for 24 hours.
No, I understand. I understand, sir. Apart from that,
so that
different layers,
that number is quite large. That's what all that I'm trying to say.
Okay, and there'll be layers of skilled jobs in various in IT and so many, because not all that locals can do. I think. Thanks a lot for answering that. And the only thing I want to sign off with a small little experience. The way back in '69, there was no the command headquarters. Western Command was not there. There are 15 corps in Udhampur. And Srinagar itself had some V sector or something like that in present Badami Bagh. And I was posted somewhere in Uri Tandar. And as a second lieutenant, I had attended some cadre in Udhampur, corps headquarters. And then, there were quite a bunch of us, 20, 30 of that. And the local duty officers, the staff, they found these are good guys to man the night duty. So we were put on some night duty. Initially, it was very glamorous, we thought we had corps duty officers and all that. But it was hell, because the whole night we had those field telephones ringing about sit traps, so many people passing away, so many accidents, so many hospitalization. And I was surprised at that time as lieutenant, even then, there were so many casualties every day. I don't know now, better roads and better means, equipment and all that. But I think more or less it gets compensated. Today we have so many terrorist this thing and all. So this I just, later on, of course, the corps moved there. Nagrota, your 16 corps was not there at that time. Anyway, thanks once again, Sandeep, for inviting me and all the gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from General Gadkari. Would the onset of elections increase violence in Jammu region, or would local politicians make a difference? If the answer is no, then how do you explain the success of terrorists despite lack of social support, and it may be short-lived? Who would like to take it on?
Actually, Nitin Gadkari can himself give a reply. Nitin Gadkari can himself give a reply. Okay, unless you want me to give a reply.
No. I could take a guess, but I could take a guess.
Okay. Since I'm just pulling your leg. I'm just pulling your leg. You know the reply yourself.
I could take a guess, but I really do not know the ground situation. because Jammu region has been a very different region, and all this while we always thought that south of Pir Panjal we were generally safe and more Hindu belt and all that. Suddenly equations have changed. But one thing I feel very strongly is whatever is happening has to be short-lived because of lack of local support. That is a very important point in sustenance of any major terrorist activity. And with the onset of elections, if the politicians has a stake in it, he will work towards our side rather than the opposite side. And that is why the question, to my mind, the violence should reduce. Irrespective of the fact that it has a longevity or not, the politician would try and make it reduce, otherwise elections will not take place. That's my take. I don't know whether I'm right.
Yeah, Nitin, I'll just give you two feedbacks, I was there in J&K when the elections were taking place, that place, Would you believe that I have seen rallies taking place there as the rallies, I'm not talking about Udhampur, Punch and Rajouri. The rallies were more attended than the rallies in Pune, Nitin. Okay, there are more people, irrespective of the party, be it National Conference, be it PDP. PDP doesn't have too much of a support, but NC has, and Congress obviously has. So one was rallies. Secondly, the road shows for which Mr. Narendra Modi is famous, there were road shows in Udhampur, there's a road show in Jammu, there's a road show in, and the road show was as well, let's say, attended by people, meaning like when you have a road show in other part of the country, the roads get blocked and you have to find a different route to go to your destination, Something similar was there. So all that I'm trying to say, Nitin, is that there was a fair amount of response to the political process, attending rallies, attending road shows, and that kind of a thing. And also, I was surprised to find out, I was speaking to some contractors here and there, So they told me that earlier, a political party in the sensitive areas, let's say, especially like Surancourt and all, there was nobody willing to fight an election, because if you fought an election, you were targeted. As simple as that. But now, like in a normal part of the country, if there's one seat, the one party will have at least 15 candidates wanting to, get elected from that seat. And if there are 2-3 political parties, then there will be about 30-40 candidates who would want to appear there. So that kind of a number was taking place there. That is what I want to tell you. That was very, very heartening and almost similar. Let me tell you, when I moved into the in the valley, I went to all the RR battalion headquarters that were there. Okay, and it was as if you are moving in a normal area. I mean, of course, I went in a normal civil car. I had no connection with army at all. Just and would you believe that the number of Punjab registration of four-wheelers was pretty high in Kashmir Valley? So I asked them a question: why Punjab registration? What is the magic? Why this? Of course, one is the price factor. That I believe 30,000-40,000 rupees, it is less, and that kind of a thing, Especially the tourist industry want the cheaper vehicles so that they can make more profit. So all that I'm trying to tell you is the political process did receive this thing, support. But again, to caution, one person being killed and you can terrorize the whole population, So I suppose we have to keep your eyes and ears open, protect the candidates, protect the political parties, protect the political process, so that the elections take place in a free atmosphere. Given during our time in 95, when we had the elections, we used to guard all the booths, to ensure that no booth was blown up later, That was not the case this time. But then one or two major incidences and the process can get reversed. Because what happens is what is predictable is what is most unpredictable is the future. Whatever you say just now you can be proved wrong in next 24 hours, So let's keep the fingers crossed and hope that the process of peace which is taking place, which is going on steadily, will continue. But one or two major incidences and problem can take place. I gave you a contrarian view. Some people would have expected that J&K is going down to dogs. That is not the case.
No. I agree with your view. Okay.
Yeah. Over to Sandeep. Over to you.
Yeah. So Namrata has asked again a question: how can we think of, that's thanks to Brigadier Mahajan for touching narco-terrorism. How are we manning the madrasa and the demographical changes in J&K? According to my sources, Punjab is 100% and compromised, and J&K is 50%. And the landscape of terror is changing from landscape of terror is changing from radicalized to narco-terrorism. Come on, sir.
Yeah, I'll give you a short answer. This question can be debated till the time the cows come home. But mothers are, the simple answer is you're not managing it. I mean, in 95, in my area, I found there were no children in some of the villages at all. So I asked, where are the children gone? They said they've gone to a madrasa in Bharuch in Gujarat. I'm talking about 95, The madrasa's culture is still there. How government is controlling it is not going to be easy. Madrasas are there on the Indo-Bangladesh border. They are there on the Nepal border. They are there in every state. Maharashtra state has got a lot of madrasas, including in the coastal areas. I have no answer for how to control madrasas. I have no answer for it, That is something which you people, the more wiser people can give their opinion on. But the second part, that is narco-terrorism. What Pakistan has really found out is when you go for a terrorist activity, the support you get is reduced. One of the thesis is that for narco-terrorism, the support is more from the local population than a gun terrorism. Sandeep, am I making an outrageous statement?
Yes,
Because a courier who's getting the thing, he makes money. And there are drug addicts who want their daily dose, So drug terrorism has a fair amount of support in a drug addict society. Okay, so it is easier, how do I put it, an easier danger. It is less dangerous, because nobody's getting killed and you're just sending your drugs through through the drones, etc. And I was talking to the BSF people there. BSF is no good at shooting down, any this thing. But also the drones are initially used to land in the field, and then somebody had to go and retrieve it. Now the drones are landing on a terrace of a courier. Pakistanis have become so good in controlling the drones, that they're landing there. And in about 10% of cases, they're able to retrieve the drone. The Pakistanis are no good in retrieving the drone. They can land the drone wherever they want, but retrieving it, because after all, drone can be got back also. But that maybe because of a lot of practice, they are doing a good job. And drone and narco-terrorism is coming up in a very big way, not only in Punjab, even in big cities of our country today, all high-class society. I don't want to talk about Shah Rukh Khan and his son and all those people. Every party today, drugs is the in thing. And that is, and drugs are readily available in big cities. I have some connection with the police in Maharashtra. I can only talk of Mumbai and all those places. Drugs are there freely, and that is something. How to stop it coming from the maritime boundaries? How to stop it coming from the land boundaries is a big challenge which we have to face, head on. That's all I can say. But drug addicts number is very, very large in the state of Punjab. Not so much in Haryana, not so much in let's say in Rajasthan, where they act only as transit points to take it to the big cities, etc. Even in the northeast, I'm told that those areas are being used more as transit point via Amazon, or all sending drugs from Manipur to Calcutta to Delhi and that kind of a thing. But drug addictions do support narco-terrorism.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Next question is, how are the forces changing our strategy perspective to counter when the terrorists are changing their strategy with a resistance front association and narrative on an international stage? This does destabilize our economic growth and reputation of the nation. Request General Murugan to take it on. Ravi Murugan.
Sorry, sir. The question was, how is it changing? How is the security force changing its strategy?
How are the forces changing our strategy perspective to counter when terrorists are changing their strategy?
It's in the chat box, sir.
Okay. So one, I mean, from what I understand, firstly, just the kinetic aspect of it. The first aspect in terms of the encounters and the contacts with the terrorists, just from the kinetic aspect, your density has to go up because there has been a reduction in density. And that is already happening. I'm not saying anything. In the newspapers you can read. You're pulling out forces from Assam Rifles are being inducted into Jammu and Kashmir, into those so-called voids where they are seeing that there has been lesser troop density. Because there are two things which we have to keep in mind. One is that active operations where there has been a contact established, that is something which happens and it happens based on intelligence. But what is more important are the prophylactic actions which allows you information and gives you initiative to carry out those actions. One way, as you yourself had said, technical information you get, technical intelligence you get, you are able to carry out seek and counter operations, and you're able to eliminate terrorists before they are in a position to inflict damage on you. That is number one. Number two is that when you carry out, there are two, especially in areas south of Pir Panjal, you require enough troop density to carry out those prophylactic action in those communication centers which you think would be having some kind of a areas around which could be used by terrorists, so that you establish your contact with them and you are able to get information. So that requires presence there. So that they are doing. And the third thing is, I read in the newspaper only that the SOG is now being used in an int gathering role rather than a kinetic counter-terrorist role. They plan to use the SOG, the JK Police SOG, which we have been formed Special Operations Group, into a more int-gathering role, which is a good thing, which in fact, to my mind, mimics the op vigil which we tried in 2001. So that is the second thing which they are doing. Now, the narrative aspect of it really, that requires far more deeper thought. This transitioning from an Islamist identity to a more popular people's movement. How do you counter that, and how fast can you do that? Especially because you are not only influencing an outside audience. The more important thing is influencing the inside audience. I saw that, we had a very nascent cell which we opened up, an info ops cell in the headquarters in Delta Force. And the number of young people who are on social is, it was revealing to us that there are so many people following, every nonsense which is going on, and they are convinced by that. Now, to counter that, you require agility, you require speed, you require quickness for it. It cannot be something which you are, requires to pass through multiple layers, and now we will set it out on media. By then it is past its sell-by date, and nobody's even reading what you have put in. So it requires, as I said, this really concerted and multi-agency thought. And but in your narco-terrorism, I believe that is already on board. You got IB, ED, counter-narco, all of them on board in some centralized database countering all this, because the narco route is exactly what is being used in the terrorist route. So strategy, I was seeing that, I think the Home Minister had chaired a meeting wherein they are talking about a new and more active strategy to eliminate terrorists. See, generally, as Brigadier Mahajan had said, their lifespan is limited. Ultimately, a terrorist who comes in, south of Pir Panjal, I would keep it about 4 to 5 months. North of Pir Panjal, it is even lesser. I think the average is about 45 days. The new ones who get recruited, 45 days, they get eliminated. So, but south, with the new kind of people coming in, I really do not know whether that is going to be that easy, especially with the terrain supporting it. And second, they're not, everybody says, a terrorist is like a fish out of water without local population. But if you have stocked that area, it's in a remote place where nobody else is coming there and only graziers are going sometimes. And you are able to restock it periodically by mingling with the population. You go without weapon cross, in some hideouts in Rajouri, they recovered stocking, food items with all packagings, markings of Shupian. So you're buying it from somewhere else, you're bringing it and stocking it there. You can remain there forever. Until by happenstance, somebody contacts you, can carry out your action, you can come back. So this whole thing of depending on local population and villagers, and if you mapped it for 1 year, you don't require a local guide. So, and you don't require large numbers now. The groups can be much smaller. 3, 4, you require only 1 action a month or 1 action a fortnight. And the Chatragala, that's a security force post with 4 people or 5 people or 8 people. You come, fire, go back and get in 2 years. So for them to carry out these actions, so therefore this whole issue of human end is extremely important. The grazier going has to come and tell you. Or somebody has to tell somebody that, we found tracks there. But so I'm sure they would be, see, the ones who are the active operators would be evolving along with the changing test. So I'm distanced from it, so I cannot really speak for what they are doing now.
Thank you. So you want to say something, gentleman?
Sandeep, I just want to tell you, information warfare, I have some knowledge, the reasons for which I won't tell you, or maybe you know, information warfare is quite effective in the state of J&K. I'll not quote figures, etc. For some reasons, but it is quite effective. If at all, we are quite good in Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those places. But we are very effective in the language of English and Hindi. But where we are weak is the Dogri, not so much Dogri, but in the Kashmiri language, in those dialects of Gujars and Bakarwars. There are not enough experts available on that who can monitor the talks of these people in the dialects which are not commonly understood by us, by us in India. But English, Hindi, that is quite effective. I will not tell you more than that. There's a fair amount of other, if I may use a correct word, offensive operations which keep on going on, but let's leave it at that. Is okay, nothing bad. But the regional dialects is something where you require more expertise, because that expertise is not there as far as the information war is concerned. Sandeep.
Yeah, very true, sir. We started, when I started my career, I started learning Mizo language. So that is also, like people go to Nagaland, they start learning that. Manipuri is there. So these are all absolutely correct, sir. And I would like to thank you all. And I'll now hand over to Group Captain Rajshekhar Mehta for the final Thanksgiving, sir.
So thank you very much, everyone. Small thought. When any nation state rises from anonymity to become a global player, history tells us that the journey is never smooth. India's rise to the third largest economy of the world is no different. Those uncomfortable with this rise do everything to slow it down. A ring of fire is being created around India by the forces inimical to this rise. So today's speakers discussed and shared their deep experience and insight into the insurgency problem faced by India since its very inception on its northern front, basically. But it is not the only front in which India has to fight the anti-Indian forces. New conventional challenges are also emerging in our neighborhood like Bangladesh. My sense is that this kind of problem will continue coming and going, but can't be rooted outright. So before closing, I must tender my profuse thanks to our guest speakers for coming on IIRF platform to share their rich experience and views. Thanks to the President IIRF, Mr. Rishi, and Colonel Madhavan for organizing this wonderful show. And finally, my thanks goes to all the participants who took time to join this talk and participated in this discourse. Thank you very much. And we wish to see you again in some similar program.
Thank you, Jahin, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.